And welcome back. With the presidential election just months away, there are several concerns about the current political climate in the United States, with the increased level of police brutality, as well as protesting and civil unrest. The question is, can this current climate affect the 2020 presidential race? Joining us now to weigh in and provide some further insight is the Associate Editorial Page Editor of the New York Post, Michael Benjamin. And Mike, good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be on.
Let's talk about this here as we got Kenosha, Wisconsin, the latest with the Jacob Blake shooting. We've got the NBA and all sports teams rising up in protest and defiance. We talk about the area of the political climate and 2020's presidential race. How do you see the current political climate playing out amidst all of this?
I think it's going to play out with a great deal of voter interest. I think you look at voters on both sides, Trump supporters of Biden and Harris coming out and being active and trying to win in those states where they believe they need to win in order to either keep their guy in or to elect Biden and Harris to the White House. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of political organizing. Yes, there's violence in some cities over police brutality and the killings of unarmed black men. But it's also, causing people to become more self-aware, to speak out, as we're seeing among those athletes, whether it's in basketball, football, hockey, and other sports, taking a stand and saying what they believe in. And you had the ball players in Milwaukee walking away from their game in protest of what happened in Kenosha, and then the others following suit, taking a time out and saying, "Look, this is getting worse. We got to say something. We got to stop it. We got to make people think about it and hopefully come to the right decision when it comes to police accountability and it comes to the rhetoric coming out of the White House."
Talk to us about Kenosha, Wisconsin for a minute. Let's go back for a moment. Obviously, you got the sheriff out there. Now the talk was that they were asking the sheriff to actually deputize citizens and put them out there as deputized citizens to protect and serve, if you will. And then, of course, the gunman, one of those that actually asked for that. I think something that's not being talked about is this young man was 17 years old, but yet and still the age in which a person is supposed to carry a firearm is 18.
Yes, I was surprised, shocked at that too. And the very fact the video showed that after he shot someone, shot three people and killed two, he's walking down the middle of a road with his rifle slung over his shoulder and his arms raised saying, "I shot someone," and police vehicles are driving past an armed man. That I found to be shocking as well. And then learning that he's a teenager, he's 17 years old. He went home, and then they were able to expedite him from, I believe, Indiana back to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And now his lawyer is saying that he was trying to defend himself. Well, the kid was running. He fell down. He turned around and he shot people point blank range. I don't know what more evidence you need for a crime having been committed by somebody who shouldn't even have had a firearm as a teenager and using it that way. I give credit to that county sheriff who refused to deputize the militiamen who said they wanted to help defend businesses. Well, that's his job, and he tried to do his job, and he knew he didn't want to put yahoos with guns out on the street trying to enforce the law and resulting in fatalities, as this young man did, unfortunately. Hopefully, he'll pay for his crime.
Yeah, let's move a little bit and talk about this particular incident. It definitely became a hotbed topic amongst those who are running for office right now. Let's talk a little bit about the Democratic side. Joe Biden has already selected Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate in a vice presidential election. I don't think, looking back as a historian, you can fill me in, but in my history, I've never heard about a vice presidential race being so, or a vice presidential pick being so powerful and all eyes on as what we saw with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Well, yeah. Well, we do know that the first woman picked for vice president was Geraldine Ferraro, a congresswoman out of Queens, New York, when she ran with the Democratic candidate for president in 1984 against Ronald Reagan. Hers carried some level of controversy, some level of notoriety. This one is important this time because run against Trump and Pence. The president has really got out of his way to try to inflame things. And we talk about Kenosha, militiamen wanting to be deputized to protect property. It's because the president said, the Second Amendment, people have to come together and help our cities. he's partially responsible for the things that have gone on and encouraging it. And I don't understand why he does it and how he gets away with it. I mean, presidents are supposed to be voices of calm and reason, and this president refuses to do that. He refuses to play by the rules of normalcy. He wants to instigate as his way of riling up his base. And when you do that, it can lead to, as we've seen in Kenosha, deaths of innocent people who were unarmed themselves. I mean, that's problematic, and the president's taking no responsibility for it. He's just trying to gin things up, going up against Democrats, saying, they're all socialists. They want to come to your neighborhood. They want to ruin your suburbs. They want to bring disorder and crime. And I'm the guy who's going to stop it. Well, the president has no real authority when it comes to the management of states and cities. It's all in the 10th Amendment. It's not in the Constitution. But the president, then he has no real business being involved. And yes, National Guard chiefs may have been called out by a state governor. Additional forces would require the president to sign off on it. And as far as I know, that really had not happened, but he's taking credit for it.
As always. Anyway, let's go here. Talk to me a little bit about this particular situation here. We're dealing with mail-in ballots as a huge possible game changer in the upcoming November election. We know that the president has appointed someone over the Postal Service that was a huge donor to his campaign. Yet and still, on the hearts and minds of many Americans, where exactly mail-in ballots will fall in the final decision-making process in this 2020 presidential election. Give me your thoughts on what we could potentially see happening here.
Well, you have a lot of mail-in because of the COVID-19 crisis. A lot of states want to go that way because a lot of voters may not feel comfortable or feel safe going to a polling place with hundreds of other people and not wanting to risk their health. So, states have instituted some level of mail-in balloting, whether you want to call absentee balloting. A couple of states, Washington State in particular, has had an all mail-in system for the last several years that has occurred without incident. The president is trying to gin up resistance to the mail-in ballots by claiming it's going to be a potential fraud. That hasn't been the case. There are no documented cases of legitimate, documented, coordinated fraud that has turned an election. I mean, we've had here in the city a couple of people who tried to and have been, charged with and convicted of balloting fraud. We had at least 2 cases in the Bronx where that happened. But it wasn't widespread, and it was basically minor violations of the election law because they delivered more than what the law says they can deliver of ballots to the Board of Elections. Yes, maybe 1 or 2 ballots we believe may have been tampered with or may have been forged, but it wasn't wide scale enough to even affect the outcome of that particular election that we're talking about here. The president thinks it'll be a major fraud. That's not going to happen. The states have responsibilities for the elections, and they're putting in safeguards to make sure nothing happens in that regard. People have a right to vote, and the more you can create better access to people in a time of coronavirus and pandemic, the more you get participation. I think it's very hard to have a national program of mail-in ballot fraud that would not be discovered prior to Election Day. So the president is just blowing a lot of heat and a lot of steam because he wants to excite his base and say they're going to take away this election. And if he loses, he wants to be able to have some sort of legitimate reason to say, well, I'm not going to recognize the outcome. That's crazy. That's not going to happen in the United States. Yes, mail-in ballots will be delayed when it comes to getting the instant results. Everybody's used to the results being on election night. But even those results have never been and are never official until they've been certified, either depending on the states, the state Board of Elections, or the Secretary of State for a state who certifies elections. Most important date is to have elections certified by December, I believe it's December 9th this year. That's when the Electoral College meets in all the states to cast their votes for the President of the United States. And the person who wins the Electoral College vote becomes the president, not necessarily the popular vote. As we learned in 2016, when President Trump basically won the Electoral College despite losing the popular vote by several million votes. That may happen again this year, or the Democrats may be able to hold on and win in the swing states. I know that's important to you and our viewers is what's going to happen in the election. New York is a given. It's going to go Democratic. It's going to go to Biden-Harris. What's going to happen in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, some other of the swing states, possibly Nevada, what's going to happen there will determine the outcome of the election. So I think Biden and Harris have to focus on winning those places that Hillary should have won 4 years ago, but didn't. That means Wisconsin, Michigan. They've got to make sure that they get the vote out, Democratic vote out, and win that state to win the electoral college vote, so they can win come December 9th in the real election with the electoral college.
Are the Democrats making enough noise other than being anti-Trump? I think that's the question that a lot of people are asking right now. Is the
It's kind
message
of
that
early
the
though. It's still early. The Republican convention just ended. We're trying to get out of this whole coronavirus pandemic mindset where people feel comfortable talking about stuff. We've had these unrests in cities over police brutality, police shootings, and so people are concerned, and the Democrats are going to come together, figure out what their focus is going to be. Is it going to be exclusively on the pandemic and the economy? Is it going to be on police brutality and the president's policies and his what some would say his racism, his anti-immigrant stance, the things that have made America a very difficult place to be if you're a minority or an immigrant these last 4 years, and also looking at how do we handle our foreign policy, and now the controversy over whether or not his director of national intelligence is going to be sharing with Congress potential information about potential efforts to undermine the U.S. election by outside forces, whether it be China, Russia, or Iran, right? or another hostile nation. They don't want to share information with members of Congress, which is a legal requirement. So a lot's going to be going on. But to answer your question, I think Biden and Harris are going to come up with at least 3 or 4 issues that they can focus on over these next few months towards Election Day to keep American voters and their voters involved to try to win those states that they need to win. That would put us back on the right track. I think it's the economy. It's the president's poor response to the coronavirus. It's the social and political unrest in many of our cities, particularly cities where you've seen police brutality and the killing of unarmed Black men. I think those are the issues that I think that those two can focus on and talk about, and what their policies would be and how would be better for the nation than what we're presently undergoing now.
All right, Michael Benjamin, we got to leave it there. Thanks a lot, brother, for joining us here on the show. Of course, you can always catch Michael Benjamin, Associate Editorial Page Editor of the New York Post. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
And by the way, great hat that you're wearing. Because of that, we'll have you back.
Go Orange.
All right. Michael Benjamin right here. We'll be back with more Open. Come right back right after this.